We all know what a school of fish is, right? It's a large number of individuals that seem to behave as if they're one entity. So, is this a school? No. These fish are close together, but they're all doing their own thing. There's no one real group property that's different from the sum of the individuals. Fish schools and sheep flocks are common examples of what's known as emergence. By definition, emergence means a property of a group that the group members do not have on their own. This also means that you can't study emergence by looking at one or a few individuals. You need to step back and look at the whole system. So I thought that I understood this, but I didn't really get it until I played around with John Conway's Game of Life. Not to be confused with Hasbro's Game of Life. Basically, the Game of Life was invented by this British mathematician in 1970, back when computers looked something like this. Here's how it works. You start out with a grid of any size and fill in some squares. What squares are alive in the next generation is determined by 4 simple rules: survival, loneliness, overcrowding, and birth. Focus on the center square here. This square is alive. If a live square touches exactly 2 or 3 neighboring live squares, it survives to the next generation. If a live square is not touching at least 2 other live squares, it dies of loneliness. If a live square is touching more than 3 other live squares, it dies of overcrowding. So if that was all there was to it, the squares would either die or survive, and nothing would happen after the second generation. But births are where things get interesting. Here, the center square is dead. The birth rule says that if a dead square is touching exactly 3 live squares, a new live square is born. So say you start out with something like this. Step forward a generation, the dark gray squares die of loneliness because they have no live squares. But you get 5 light blue squares born because they were each touching exactly 3 live squares in the previous generation. Here are the live squares in generation 2. Once again, all of these squares will die out from loneliness, but you get 3 births this time. In generation 3, loneliness strikes again, but you get 2 new births. After only 4 generations, the last 2 squares die out. Let's say we start out with another pattern with the same number of squares. What do you think this grid will look like after 12 generations? In the first generation, we immediately see something different. We have some squares getting overcrowded and others being born. But these 4 squares in the light gray are just surviving. They stay alive because they have 2 or 3 alive neighbors. If we speed up and just show you who's alive at the end of each generation, something different and unexpected happens. Let's look at that again, side by side. Pattern 1 on the left goes out after 4 generations, while pattern 2 on the right is doing something wild, which I totally didn't expect. When I first saw this, that's when it clicked. This is emergence. Simple rules driving the behavior of individuals, leading to an emergent property of the group as a whole, like this oscillating pattern here that the individuals don't have. And it turns out that emergence is all around us. Here are some ways that you might see emergence in your daily life. All right, imagine you're a game show contestant. You're 1 question away from winning $1 million and you still have 2 lifelines. You can either ask a friend or ask the audience. Which do you choose? Statistically, the friend is going to be right about 2/3 of the time, while the audience is going to be right around 90% of the time. This is called wisdom of the crowd, and it's an emergent property. By combining all of our different experiences and backgrounds, we are better at coming up with the right answer. Let's look at another example. Why is this rock worth more than this rock? Price is an emergent property that arises from supply, demand, and how people expect the value to change in the future. The value of 1 ounce of gold has risen about 600% over the last 50 years. Certain things like an ounce of gold or even the US dollar have somewhat of a stable value because they have had a stable value in the past and people trust that their value will increase. This trust is also emergent from different networks of people all trusting the same thing. On the other hand, what if a group of connected individuals decided to artificially inflate the value of something by buying a bunch of stock, holding onto it, and convincing others to buy it? This is exactly what happened in 2021 when a group on the social platform Reddit decided to band together to invest in a cheap stock for a dwindling company called GameStop. Thousands of people bought the stock, suddenly causing the price to increase, spectacularly rising as much as 200% in a single day and then crashing a week later. The entire field of economics is based on emergent properties like price and stability that arise from human collective behavior. For our final example, we're going to watch these two cat videos. Which one of these videos is better? This one has 4.7 million views, while the other one, which is around the same time period, only has 19,000 views, which is less than 1% of the first video. Popularity is another emergent property. You might guess right sometimes, but it's not possible to predict confidently what's going to go viral by asking just a few people what they think about a video clip. Virality is a property that emerges from complex interactions between people as they share things with their social networks, and then their followers decide whether they want to reshare it or not. This applies to basically any form of entertainment, from movies to TV shows and even music. So yeah, emergence is all around us. See if you can spot an example on your own today. Here's what you want to look out for: a pattern that seems to emerge from a group without a clear leader. The whole group takes on a new property or behavior that seems inherently different from the individuals that make up the group. Once you notice something interesting, ask yourself, is this just a bunch of randomly interacting individuals without any special group property? Or is there something emergent, something that is unexpected and distinct about the group that isn't present in its individual parts?